Good evening. We have a mystery story out of Washington. 5 people have been arrested and charged with breaking into the headquarters of the Democratic National Committee in the middle of the night.
The Democratic National Committee is located in the Watergate office building. The burglars forced a stairwell door, then taped its latch open. The door, now part of police evidence, was noticed by one of the guards employed by the Watergate complex. At first, the police found nothing. Then they spied 5 men crouching behind some desks.
Neither the president, obviously, or anybody in the White House, or anybody in authority in any of the committees working for the re-election of the president have any responsibility for it.
Hey guys, today we're going to talk about one of the biggest scandals in American history, the Watergate Scandal. The big question that we're going to try and answer today is, how did the Watergate break-in and the subsequent cover-up influence the course of American history? So let's do this. Alright, so a little background on Richard Milhouse Nixon. We're going to start with the 1968 presidential election. He is a Republican candidate, and he is up against Hubert Humphrey, the Democratic candidate. This is one of the closer elections in American history, and he just barely squeaks it out. He barely wins the popular vote. Anyways, 4 years pass, and the 1972 election, he's running against Democratic candidate George McGovern. This election is the exact opposite. He wins it in an absolute landslide. If you want to check out the cool graphic I have up here. Alright, so now I know you all want to hear about the actual scandal. Okay, so it happens on June 17th, 1972. 5 burglars break into the Democratic National Convention Center in Watergate. These 5 burglars are found by a security guard who passes by a door and the security guard sees a little piece of duct tape holding the door, keeping it from locking. So he walks by that, and the 5 men are arrested. Many of them with ties to the Nixon administration, one of them a former CIA operative. At the time, Nixon doesn't even know about the break-in, allegedly, and the men were actually sent by a group in his administration known as CREEP. Alright, when Mr. Nixon heard about the scandal, he did as any righteous man in his position of power would do. He tried to cover it up. The taping system at the White House tapes every conversation non-stop. So this would have been the smoking gun that they needed to prove that he was guilty. However, the tapes were tampered with, and 18 minutes of them were actually completely blank. This was attributed to his secretary, who said that she damaged them. Right. Alright, so even without the tape, the scandal is still released to the public from the help of reporters Bob Woodward and his buddy Bernstein. These guys were able to get it out to the public, who were outraged about the situation. After this, the Saturday Night Massacre happens. And what happens here is Nixon fires most of his aides and everyone in his cabinet in an attempt to cover up for himself. But it's actually a little too late. The public's too outraged. In face of total impeachment, he comes on television and he becomes the first president to formally resign from the presidency of the United States.
Therefore, I shall resign the presidency effective at noon tomorrow. Vice President Ford will be sworn in as president at that hour in this office.
So what happens next? President Ford takes over. He's oftentimes called the accidental president. He gives Nixon a full pardon. So Nixon never goes on trial, and this outraged the public, and his approval ratings plummet. After him, Jimmy Carter takes over, who the public absolutely love. He was raised outside of politics, so the people don't see him as a corrupt politician like the previous 2 presidents were. So after Watergate, this new thing called the Gate suffix comes to being. And what the Gate suffix means is that now any high-profile scandal gets the term Gate added to the end of it. So for instance, when the New England Patriots were filming other teams' practices, they called that Spygate. When the New Orleans Saints coaches were paying their players to injure high-profile players on other teams, that was called Bountygate. When Arnold Schwarzenegger had an affair with his nanny, that was called Nannygate. And one that's probably the most familiar to you all, when President Bill Clinton had an affair with Monica Lewinsky, that one is known as Monica-gate. So it has resonating factors with more than just that. All right, so to revisit our main question, how did the Watergate scandal affect the course of American history? Well, our first thing, it affected the next two presidencies with Ford and Carter. People hated Ford for pardoning Nixon, and then Carter came in pretty much to save the day because he was way different than the previous two presidents. We also have the Gate suffix that starts to get added to every high-profile scandal. And overall, people right after Watergate had a general distrust of their government. They felt that, you know, if he almost pulled this off, almost got away with it, not for the reporting of Woodward and Bernstein, it would have made him feel as though politicians are above the law. This case pretty much said that they weren't. Although he was never tried for it, he pretty much resigned because he knew he would have been impeached. All right, guys. I'd like for you to try and draw your own conclusions about what you might think how it could have impacted history. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate it, and I'll see you around.
Counselor, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Steve, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's good to have you. You can call me Steve, but my name is Chris. It doesn't matter. Everybody calls me Steve. I don't know why.